Welcome back, Hodlers. Today we're going to be talking about Bitcoin, the market cycle, where everything is, what's going to be expected over the next couple of weeks to months. And, we've discussed about a potential summer lull, which it's still in the cards. But obviously everything's been looking a little bit more bullish other than maybe what's going on today. But we'll talk about that. Today's not a big issue or anything for the charts. But we will discuss exactly what's going on with cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. One big thing I wanted to bring up before we get into the charts is this article. Bitcoin's price is steady as Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell says inflation could go higher. No, Sherlock. Yeah, absolutely. Inflation could definitely go higher. If you're thinking that at this point when they're printing so much of the USD, and Jerome Powell is basically behind all of it, when you're printing so much of the USD, there's going to be inflation. It's not even a question of if or might, it is going to happen. And this is what's happening. They're devaluing the dollar, which is why there's so much more institutional demand right now to buy cryptocurrency. There are a lot of people saying right now that you want to buy Bitcoin and you want to buy crypto. I think Grayscale was one of the firms that actually mentioned that. But then again, Grayscale is always buying cryptocurrency, right? But in this article, it does say that inflation is at the highest rate since 2008, which makes a lot of sense because 2008 was back when Hank Paulson had the bazooka that Nancy Pelosi gave him and just to print out money because, that's what you need. If you say that you got a bazooka in your pocket, you're never going to have to use it. I wonder how that turned out. Not very well. And I think Bitcoin is our lifeboat. It's our ship out of this. The US dollar will eventually one day in history go down as a cautionary tale of why you can't just trust debt-backed currency or fiat currency, which is essentially what the United States dollar is. It's based on debt. It's based on how much you trust whether or not that is a dollar worth of money, right? So time's a ticking, in my opinion. So is Bitcoin going to be your appropriate hedge against inflation? I think it will, mainly because of the targets. Now, we went through the whole narrative through the whole C19 issue about inflation is too low. I remember watching Jerome Powell actually have these conferences and say inflation has historically been too low and we need to raise inflation. In what world do you live in that you want to raise inflation because good monetary policy? That's not how this works, and that's not how it can work, and it's not going to work that way. And we know that even regardless of their 2% inflation model, we're seeing a much more drastic inflation in terms of gas prices, groceries, cars, hell, even used cars now. What is going on here? Used cars are crazy. I'm almost thinking of just holding onto my car and not getting a new one because why? Either way, what I'm saying is your purchasing power with your dollars is dramatically going lower and lower and lower, regardless of what the Federal Reserve wants you to believe about inflation rates. And don't get me twisted, we are absolutely heading for negative interest rates, I promise you. Because even in this article, they say consumer prices are up at least 5% higher in May 2021. And this trend is going to continue dramatically as we go into 2022 and 2023. Especially we have a very lackluster jobs report, and it seems like a lot of our issues is actually finding the bodies to work these jobs, which is becoming a huge drive on the economy and pulling it down. So we are going through some tumultuous times with the United States dollar. And Bitcoin is going down. It is what it is. But I've dramatically said all the time that Bitcoin is by far the best store of value that you could absolutely have. And the short-term dips that it's going to happen are just going to be good buying opportunities. Look at it as a buying opportunity. But right now, you shouldn't be sleeping on Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies because the United States dollar is going to go to nothing. Eventually, one day, I'm going to be right. I promise you, the USD in its current form will not last. Okay, now that we got that out of our systems. Oh, by the way, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, all that fun jazz. The next article, I just wanted to bring it up because I love John McAfee. Other than the fact that he hasn't eaten his own dick. Other than that, I love John McAfee. So good for him. I'm not a big fan of his virus software, but hey, it is what it is. The US thinks I'm hiding crypto. The reality is, if you've ever seen John McAfee and heard John McAfee, he is 100% hiding cryptocurrency somewhere. It's not even a doubt in my mind. Thought this was a nice little fun article to bring up for you guys. Okay, so let's talk about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, where Bitcoin is going to go in the long term. Now, again, we're not really talking about the short-term price action, but just to go over the short-term very, very quickly and discuss exactly where we are. And we're going to go quickly onto the 4-hour chart just to see. Now, we've been rejected, and we've been rejected at the $40,000 level, which makes sense. So you can see here we got rejected just about, 40,700, somewhere around that area, and then headed on to our downward trend. So what does that mean for Bitcoin now that it's been rejected there? And I don't think a lot, right? Because we've talked about Bitcoin and we've talked about this channel that we're trading in between the 32 and the 42. And I still think that we're going to trade within this channel for a little bit. This bull flag, this bullish indicator here might have been, super motivating for a lot of people to think, hey, we're coming out of this downturn. And we could still come out of the downturn once we break up above $42,000, but it's more likely that we just keep bouncing around this level and just keep doing things like this. I can eventually see us moving up eventually out of this channel, but I don't think we were going to see any major breakout. I'm still hearing from a lot of chart analysts and from a lot of people saying that we are going to see a market peak in September. And just to go over that really quick to see exactly where we would need to go to say 150,000 by, let's say, the end of September. I'm going to be very generous here and say October 1st. We're going to go 150,000 to October 1st. We need to make an incline similar to this. We need to price raise similar to this to get up to 150,000 by September. Is this going to happen? Is this move realistic with cryptocurrency or realistic with Bitcoin with lengthening market cycles? So if you look at this specifically, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I don't want to, it's a theory out there, and I don't want to say that it can't happen. It's a non-negligible chance that it could happen, but at the same time, is it probable to happen? And I'd probably say probability, no, it's not probable. So here it is shorter than our last market cycle peak to peak. The last one was 1,400 days, so this was slightly short. But one of the biggest reasons why I can't see us pulling out of that is because of our death cross. Now, I've mentioned before in a video that I know that the death cross sounds scary, and the last death cross that we had in the same situation in a bullish time, we did spark a bear market. But I will say that death crosses are definitely all the time reactionary. And the reason why I say that is because the moving averages are lagging indicators, so they're going to change over time and correct for issues that happened in the past. So you can see here that we're most certainly going for this death cross because of this dump here. So because we dumped here and capitulated down, we most certainly are going for the death cross. I don't think there's a way to avoid it at this point. I think we're just heading to it. Now, we've talked about that before because we've had a number of death crosses, one being here where we pumped up, another one being right here where we dropped it back down and then pumped back up. So it is possible that when we get the death cross, we do just get held down below in this channel. So it's very possible that we could just trade level. I don't think that we're going to see a Bitcoin at this point sub maybe 30K as much as I said that we could see it. Now, that's not to say that it's not going to happen, but the probability, just like the probability of us going to 150K in September, the probability is probably low that we're going to see an under 30K in the near term. Maybe unless there's something that terribly happens in the news that really messes with it, or say a stock market crash, we could see something a little bit lower, but I'm not expecting anything anytime soon. So right now, I'd more or less expect Bitcoin just to trade level. So looking at the weekly and looking at the bull market support band indicator, there's a couple of things to know right now about the bull market support band, and keep a couple of these things in mind. Now, with the bull market support band, you can see here that we constantly bumped up against that bull market support band, which means that that bull market support band at that time was our level of support or holding us up. The same way goes on the backward spectrum. If we're below the bull market support band, if we're pushing up against it, we're going to get some resistance. Now, the resistance is completely depending on how long we've been under it. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't shoot up and make it above the bull market support band. But I do think if we do make it above the bull market support band, it's most likely going to be a slow, gradual process and kind of move until finally we're able to pick it back up and get above that mark. Again, I've talked numerous times about when I think the bull market is going to go again at this point. Not necessarily the bull market is going to go again, but when we're going to see a market peak is probably sometime in 2022. Could be somewhere between fall to maybe the winter of 2022, even in the new year of 2023. It's very possible. And the reason why I say things are very possible like that, because if you look at the previous market cycles, and I want to get everyone away from the 4-year market cycles because I don't think they're completely accurate. When we're looking at market cycles, you really have to look at them as a growing thing. Like, we can't predict exactly how long a market cycle is going to be. And obviously the bullish sentiment has a lot to play with it. But if we look at the market cycles, they're roughly around, this one was 211 weeks. And then this one here was roughly, if we look at it from our peak, roughly 178. Now, you guys know that I'm not a stocks guy, not commodities or anything. I do own stocks and I have some, but I don't do nearly as much research as I do cryptocurrencies. But when you're looking at something like gold, which isn't necessarily a stock, it's more of a commodity, a metal, it has a more representation of what we could potentially see from a bull market. Now, we see this bull market here, and you can see most of these bull markets, even if you go peak to peak, these market cycles peak to peak are crazy. 162 bars, which is weeks. We're on the weekly chart here. We're talking between the 80s to 2011. We're talking about some massive timelines of market cycles. And the only reason I'm bringing gold up, the only reason I talk about this is because I suspect that most likely eventually cryptocurrency is going to go through the same maturity at some level, and we are going to see a trading pattern similar to what we would see with gold. So we could see our market cycles at this point. They could be 4 years. They could increase by a couple months every time, a year, whatever it may be. But we could eventually see multi-year bull markets in the future. So to put that into perspective, it would be dramatically gross for you to kind of say, if we're looking at, market cycles and everything else, if you were to say something like the bull market will never hit a death cross and survive, if you were to say something like that, you're not taking into account that a bull market could potentially last years on years, depending on the maturity of the market cycle. Now, again, this is mainly a theory. I'm not saying that this is how it's going to happen, but I'd probably say it's as likely as a 4-year market cycle at this point. I don't think we are going to see a 4-year market cycle, at least not this market cycle. I could be proven wrong in the next market cycle. Who knows? See you in the next bull market. I'll be there. Will you? But at this point, I don't think that that's going to happen for this market cycle. I think we're going to deal with a much longer market cycle, which could mean for some higher numbers as well. I know a lot of people are like, oh, why are you so bearish, man? Why are you talking bearish? But if you think about it, if I want the market cycle to be longer, to maybe hit 300,000, I wouldn't say that's bearish at all. I say Bitcoin and all cryptocurrencies doing lines of consolidation similar to this, similar to these buying opportunities here, right down in this accumulation zone that we're finding ourselves in. This is only bullish for Bitcoin. And the fact that we haven't dropped below, say, $28,000 in the last couple weeks to month, I think that's incredibly bullish on where Bitcoin's going to go. There's a lot of institutional support. There's a lot of money that wants to buy Bitcoin. So at this point, we can fully expect that the cryptocurrency market will most likely last until the end of 2022, or at least that's my prediction. Again, I could be completely wrong, and we could peak out at the end of September, and by then, I guess, hey, I have a cash out, and I'm as happy as everyone else. But that's it for me. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, and of course, happy hodling. Oh, and just another reminder, I'll be off next week, so videos are going to be a little sporadic, but I'll be posting some videos of my trip. And we'll be talking about cryptocurrency, obviously. All right, everyone, take it easy.